Hey everybody, what's going on? Dr. Chad Woolner here.
And Dr. Buddy Allen.
And this is episode 19 of the Health Fundamentals Podcast. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about a surprising discovery or theory behind your lack of motivation. So let's get started. You're listening to the Health Fundamentals Podcast. I'm Dr. Chad Woolner.
And I'm Dr. Buddy Allen. And this show is about giving you the simple but powerful cutting-edge tools you need to change your health and your life.
So sit back and enjoy the show as we show you the path to your best life down to a science. So hey everybody, on today's episode, we came across something kind of interesting. There's a new study or a new theory, I guess, that they're looking into studying as to one potential cause behind lack of motivation. And this is a really important subject because at the end of the day, when we talk about making changes to our health and improvements, that's where it all begins. That's where the rubber hits the road, right? You were just chatting with a patient the other day, right? Who was struggling with depression.
Oh, yeah.
Is that right? And what was the challenge there?
They didn't want to get out and do anything.
Right. But they knew intellectually, right? They knew intellectually that exercise helps, that eating better helps, getting moving, getting social, doing, a lot of these different things. But the problem was
they couldn't do it.
The lack of motivation, right?
They couldn't push themselves to do it.
Right. Man, it's crazy. So
and it's funny because this very same person, and I'm not trying to pick on them at all. So in the wintertime, when it was cold and nasty, it was, I can't wait for the sunny, warm days, right?
Right.
And then I'm going to get out and I'm going to walk and I'm going to move and start doing things. And then, the first thing they said to me was, it's too hot. I can't get out and do anything anymore. I'm like, no, that's not acceptable.
Right.
Sorry, the sunshine is out. You need to get up earlier then. Or you need to go late in the evening. Yeah, right. I was like, you have to force yourself to do it because,
it's interesting. And I learned this a lot from a book that I've read that I always have applied to so many areas of life. It's called The Willpower Instinct by Kelly McGonigal. I probably talked about it already on the podcast. But we as human beings, and there's research to back this up, which is kind of crazy, but we always have this tendency of wanting to live our best life in terms of health in the future and not in the present. Because it's always easier, right? Because is almost like this magical fantasy land where in the future we have way more motivation, we have way more energy, we have way more money, time, freedom, resources. Everything is easier and or better in the future. We don't have the same constraints that we have now, right? And so this study was actually done by Emory Health Sciences. And here's what they basically said. They said they have a kind of prevailing theory that chronic inflammation might drive down dopamine and motivation. So they said a new computational method will allow scientists to measure the effects of chronic inflammation on energy availability and effort-based decision-making. The method may yield insights into how chronic low-grade inflammation contributes to motivational impairments in some cases of depression, schizophrenia, and other medical disorders. And so in English, basically what they're saying is that the cause or the culprit in many instances behind a lack of motivation is chronic inflammation, which when you think about it, shouldn't come across as too necessarily surprising.
Not surprising at all, really.
Right? So what's the deal with inflammation? What's the issue there?
Let's just kind of break it down and what inflammation does to our body. So inflammation generally means you're going to hurt. If you have inflammation in a joint, that joint is going to hurt. If it's in your back is going to hurt. If it's in your head, it's going to hurt, right? Inflammation creates pain
and
pressure.
Pain in and of itself has an incredible way of diminishing motivation, right?
Oh, it's crippling, especially chronic pain. Chronic pain is, it just beats people down.
Right.
It like robs their hope that they could ever not be in pain.
Right.
So that, that's the first part is it beats you up.
Well, and I think too, there's something to be said for chronic inflammation. Put stress on the body. It's a stressor. And when we're in that state, it's like we're in a survival mode, in a chronic survival mode. Our body is just trying to survive.
Well, you can look at all the bodies, the functional systems in our body. Our cardiovascular. If we have inflammation in our cardiovascular system, what happens? We get atherosclerosis, all right? We get plaquing, all right? That's our body's defense against inflammation is plaquing.
Right.
All right? In our lungs, if we have inflammation, we get asthma. We can't breathe well.
Yeah.
Okay? In our joints, if we have chronic inflammation, they become arthritic much, much more quickly.
Yeah.
In our brains, same type, it's like that's when the amyloid plaques and different things are building up. Like it creates disease processes in every part of our body. So it makes sense that if you have a chronic inflammation throughout your body over long periods of time, that it's going to just rob you of energy. It's going to rob you of desire. It's going to because you feel crummy. Again, that hope, we talked a few episodes ago about how important having hope is for improving yourself, right? Well,
and there's something to be said too about just the chemistry in our brain and how that plays a role in all those areas. And so chronic inflammation is most definitely going to create altered states of brain chemistry. It is. And that's what they're saying here, right? Is that it's going to lower dopamine. Dopamine is a very misunderstood brain chemical or hormone in the brain, neurotransmitter, whatever you want to call it. Oftentimes people think that dopamine is a reward hormone, and it's not necessarily that. What it is, the way I've always understood it and the way I've always explained it, is it's an anticipatory hormone. It's the hormone that helps you see things through for the simple fact of the anticipation of the reward, right? Yes. That's how dopamine kicks in, is if you feel like something good is going to happen, right? If you want to know why runners love running so much and how dopamine plays a role, dopamine is not the euphoria necessarily that people think of, or the what's the term they use after running, the
runner's high,
the runner's high, or the what's the term that they use?
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the term there. It'll come to me.
It will.
But you know what I mean. All the different happy chemicals in the brain. Oh golly, this is going to drive me crazy. But it's not that. What it is, dopamine serves a role to help propel people forward because they're anticipating the good feelings, right? All those different things. And so dopamine plays a really powerful role in motivation because it's the thing that helps propel you forward and push you forward because of the excitement, the hope, the anticipation of the positive outcome that you're looking for, right? And so when inflammation starts to alter these sorts of things, it's no wonder people deal with a lot of these issues. And the thing that I couldn't help but think is, it's no wonder people struggle with these things because it becomes this kind of negative spiral, right? Things start to just naturally spiral out of control.
You feel trapped, So, you hurt, you don't sleep good. Because you don't sleep good, you have no energy to get out and start moving and doing. And I was actually just going to pose the question, there's a lot of different ways for tackling inflammation. The probably least long-term effective and potentially most harmful would be what when we reach for our Advil or for some other anti-inflammatory. But really, if we kind of scale things back to thinking about doing the right thing in the right order for the right amount of time, when it comes to inflammation in almost all circumstances, and I don't, off the top of my head, probably just there may be a rare exception. It really comes down to what we're eating initially. Like the baseline thing to approach in any kind of inflammatory state is, what are we eating and how is that affecting our body? And because that is going to have the most profound effect. Movement is going to be probably right up there right after it. But if we don't have the chemical part inside of us, that what we're eating and the processes that are kicked into play, whether it be anti-inflammatory or inflammatory, if we're not eating right, we can't ever hope to get on top of inflammatory issues if all we keep doing is throwing fuel on the fire with terrible food.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So, if I could say, this is, it's very it's encouraging and scary at the same time to think because there's a lot of people who deal with chronic inflammation. There are autoimmune conditions that create chronic inflammation.
Yeah.
And but still, when you really think about it, even if you are someone who has been beat down with some sort of autoimmune issue that makes it very hard for you to not be inflamed, the number one thing that you could do to help that would be to eat an anti-inflammatory diet.
Right.
And I don't want to get into that now, because we could talk for probably
Hours.
5 different episodes on different things with respect to diet and things we could eat or not eat,
Yeah.
to affect that. But I would say an anti-inflammatory diet and in fact, I can't even think of a scenario where that wouldn't be the first place you would want to go.
Right. Right.
So
yeah, I would say that. I would say one other area is getting good sleep.
yes,
Improving diet is going to be probably, like you said, that's going to be that foundational baseline first line of defense in terms of helping reduce chronic inflammation. Obviously, there's some supplements that you can add into that can have a role. Fish oils,
oh sure.
being a really simple one to help combat.
I would also say, and maybe just following that, is just activity increasing. And I'm not
absolutely.
necessarily saying you have to hit the gym and start, pounding the pavement in that regard, but just increasing your activity, whether it be a nice, just a gentle, easy walk in the mornings or the evenings, or just doing more than you were doing. Increasing activity is an incredible way for dumping stress, which will also help decrease inflammation.
Even if it was something as simple as getting outside and getting exposure to sunlight.
Absolutely.
Countless studies have shown the power of vitamin D and what that can do to help with pain, to help combat.
And again, we're looking for motivation here. These are little steps that you can make to kind of to really just spur that motivation into action.
Well, and if I can be quite honest and vulnerable here for people who are listening here, this is something that I'm acutely aware of because it's something that I have struggled with throughout my life. Truly, it has. And specifically, it's something I can really relate to, because this past year, as you know, was probably one of the most challenging years of my entire life. My wife has dealt with for years a lot of chronic health issues. Specifically, this past year, she dealt with very severe insomnia. I mean, it's the worst it's ever been. And so that had a major negative impact on me and my ability, obviously, to get sleep if my wife's not sleeping, and trying to help her and whatnot. And so what that did for me was that led to a lot of other issues in terms of feeling less energy in the morning, feeling a traumatic lack of motivation in the mornings to really do much of anything. And then that kind of led to a negative, cycle of other things as well. And so the one thing I can say is, for me, if I were to pinpoint, well, what was it that really helped? Well, obviously my wife's sleep has improved, but it wasn't overnight, number one. And I did start to make some positive changes and steps in the right direction. And I would say the biggest thing for me that personally helped, and I don't know what your experience has been in this, but is breaking it down into bite-sized pieces. I think that's one of the biggest things that I have found that is really challenging when you're in that place of not feeling motivated, is feeling like the world is just throwing on your shoulders this laundry list of things you need to do, right? Well, if you're going to increase your motivation, you need to change your diet. You need to detox. You need to go run a mile. You need to do this. You need to do, and before you know it, you've just got this overwhelming list of things that you ought to do. But what I've come to find is one of the simplest ways, for me anyways, to improve that area is to break things down into really simple, just steps, simple steps. Like, okay, I'm going to get up early. I'm going to brush my teeth. I'm going to wash my face. I'm going to just get out and start walking and start moving. And then from there, I'm going to break my workout down so that I'm not going to do a full hour workout. I'm just going to do a 10-minute workout. I'm going to go run for just a little bit. I'm going to, read something that's going to inspire me. I'm going to write in my journal. I'm going to do simple little things step by step, and I'm going to take them one step at a time. I'm not going to think about the whole thing. I'm just going to do one little thing at a time, and that was a huge thing for me in terms of helping rekindle some of that motivation, and get back into some of those patterns, positive patterns, I guess. Any thoughts you have?
Nope. Nope. I just would hope that you would take some sort of action. And that's kind of why I wanted to throw out some ideas is, if you're one of those folks that just are feeling like I have no energy or no drive to get out and do something, just do something, little something, because those little bitty steps of action create more motivation and more willpower and more drive. And
one surefire way to kill motivation even further is to beat yourself up.
Oh yeah.
And so that's another good point that you bring up there. Something is powerful.
Yeah. Just anything, a little something,
anything, it can help.
And build on it.
Yeah. And exactly. Build from where you're at. Start where you're at. Mm-hmm. We're not expecting, this overnight revolution, so anyways, so people struggling with motivation, a good place to look at least, they say in theory, but I think we could take it further than just theory, is inflammation, right? What can you do to reduce inflammation? And I think we've given maybe some good practical insights as to some things you might be able to do to begin that process. And hopefully then the idea is sustain it, right? So thank you guys so much for listening. Hope this has been valuable for you guys, and we'll talk to you guys on the next episode.
Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Health Fundamentals Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so that you stay in the loop and in the know with all of the cutting-edge health information that we share. If you know other people that could benefit from this information, please share it with them as well. Also, be sure to give us a review. These really help us to ultimately help more people. Last but not least, if you have questions that you want answered live on the show, or if you have ideas for topics that you would like us to cover, please shoot us an email and let us know at info@thehealthfundamentals.com.